Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We know you're busy people. We like to move quickly through these calls. Bottom line, the essential information for you. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the reset of some of these other currencies. We spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or the purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is most relevant. And from our perspective, the most relevant piece of information is the window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. As I've been stating for several months, and I will continue to state as our opinion, that January of 2020, for a number of reasons that I will discuss here, seems like at this point the only plausible date for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. And the reasons are as follows. There is a lot going on legislatively in Iraq right now having to do specifically with the currency reforms that are necessary in order for the dinar to be reinstituted in country. Parliament has pursued a number of legislative initiatives. For example, they have legislated that they want an ongoing national education program having to do with this reform, specifically the deletion of the zeros and the release of the lower denoms and the coinage. They have legislated for the reissuance and reminting of the coinage. They have legislated further that the release and remint of the coinage will be done in concert with the deletion of the zeros, telling us that everything will have been accomplished. Now, what's important about the legislation regarding the reminting of the coinage is that the legislation calls for the remint of the existing 2004 coinage strike. Now, that's important because had they not specifically stated in the legislation that they would remint the existing 2004 strike, then we would have debate and argument about what the new coinage should look like, what images should be on it, what phrases should be included on it. That, of course, is time-consuming. But it is believed that by reminting the existing 2004 strike, they can have the coinage ready by mid-September. Now, why is mid-September important? It's because the CBI and the government want and have stated on numerous occasions that they want the coinage in circulation for about 3 months prior to the reinstitution of the currency. So if we have the the remint of the coinage in September, then that puts, once again, the reinstitution in January of 2020. In addition, the Parliament has legislated that the provisional currency will no longer be available once the coinage is minted, but the coinage will be used with foreign nations for exchange purposes. So that, in essence, is a de facto elimination of the auctions as well. So they would have cleaned up everything that would have been an impediment to the reinstitution. The last issue is that the Parliament, as I've discussed in the past, has set up a special finance committee. That finance committee has been directed to work specifically on the 2020 budget, meaning that the issue of recalibrating and rewriting the 2019 budget in order to accommodate for the change of the exchange rate from 11.80 at the beginning of the year to whatever the reinstitution rate would be is off the table, meaning that there will be no reinstitution this year, calendar year. Everything has been calibrated for the reinstitution in January of 2020. Now, this is our opinion. I guess it's possible that a reinstitution could happen before then, but there's a problem-solving principle. It's referred to as Occam's razor, and it postulates that if there are several plausible solutions to a situation, the easiest solution is usually the correct one. And the easiest solution here is for an orderly currency reform process with the reinstitution of the currency at the then stated rate in concert with the January 2020 release of the 2020 budget. So again, and I don't want to be repetitive, but January of 2020, from our point of view, is the only date that makes sense for the reinstitution of the dinar. Now, that means a couple of things. It means that individuals will have more time to purchase additional dinar and other currencies if they feel that the reinstitution is imminent. It also means that you have additional time to get your affairs in order prior to the reinstitution of the currency. Now, a lot of individuals don't really know what that means. Most individuals that hold dinar are not extremely wealthy people. So the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar is going to turn some rather middle-class individuals into very wealthy individuals. And because this is literally going to be happening overnight, most people are going to be caught completely unprepared for the things that they'll be facing for the first time. That is why Trusts Unlimited has put a program in place to assist you, and you have some time now to get your affairs in order prior to the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar. Now, we have a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. Post-RV involves all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts, and again, the assignment of those currencies on paper to that trust product. There are a number of entities or structures you can establish to provide some level of asset protection in order to protect this wealth prior to the revaluation. For example, you could establish an LLC or a sub-S corporation. Now, those are business entities. They do provide some asset protection, primarily by separating business interests from private interests. But the problem with the LLC and the sub-S corporation is the possession of these currencies is not, quote-unquote, a business interest. In addition, courts have ruled that if an LLC or a sub-S corporation is owned by one person or a family or by some small group, it can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and the sub-S corporation are not going to be appropriate and will not provide the asset protection you are going to need. Some individuals have established something called a revocable trust. A revocable trust is established primarily to exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and it can, in some cases, substantially reduce the exposure to the federal estate tax. But a revocable trust can provide no privacy or asset protection, so that's not going to be an appropriate vehicle. Some individuals have established an irrevocable trust, and an irrevocable trust does provide substantial asset protection. However, there is a weakness, and it is this. If you have a single irrevocable trust, that means that everything you own is in that one trust. It also means that if any asset within that trust should get involved in civil proceedings, that will drag all of the other assets into that civil litigation as well, because all of those assets are owned by the same entity. That is why we have established a package of asset protection trusts, and I'm going to explain to you why you need to establish this package prior to the revaluation of these currencies, and why this package of trusts will provide asset protection that is simply not available through any other vehicle. First, by establishing this package of asset protection trusts and assigning your currencies on paper to that trust package, you will have preserved your privacy and your anonymity. Why? Because assets held within our irrevocable trust package are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would be frustrating, particularly if it would come at the point in time when there was a revaluation and you have other issues to deal with. And such an audit would cost you more than our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust package is in place and your currencies have been assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. That's important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this taxable event were to occur within a sophisticated trust. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because included in it is a special gifting subtrust. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the USD lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be done outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through our exclusively designed gift subtrust. By gifting through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. The language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift to them the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you're gifting through this gift subtrust, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute these funds to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public would be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they could simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits, one pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's use the previous example from above. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it out of title to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal asset protection strategy referred to as segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million, and now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely a beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family, and you will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal persons or entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So your trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your asset protection trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist and instruct you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. In addition, many of our clients have expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with a direct transfer of funds from your pre-RV asset protection trust package to these newly formed entities. We'll have our tax specialists there to assist you with all sorts of tax issues. Our offshore specialist will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are usually lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and it work in other markets. And lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets to avoid that volatility. Now, our package of trusts is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned pre-valued currencies pre-RV, and then financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and that trust will also manage your subtrusts. One gift subtrust, an optional subtrust that can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time, and 8 additional subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized for our more affluent clients in the past, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But some years back, when we decided to work with Dinarians and make this trust product available to them, we were well aware of the fact that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for many. So by basically simplifying the trust package and back-end loading it post-RV, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum we basically expend just to produce and deliver your trust to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place prior to the revaluation should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 you would pay us under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. So the most you will ever pay for the trust documents themselves is $3,000. That's a one-time only cost. The only additional cost lifetime for this trust product are the rather nominal paralegal fees if you wish to make changes to the trust or fund some of the sub-trusts. Now, I'm going to be going to a Q&A in just a moment. But before I do, again, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this call. And for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider at least contacting us to get our initial package. Our trust product was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have actually been working together for over a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And frankly, it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. Under our system of civil procedure, it's just the reverse. It's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced directly in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is now identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Now I'm going to go to the Q&A in a moment. So I would suggest that our newer callers have a pencil and paper handy because I'm going to give you our contact information. Again, if the things we've said here this afternoon are of interest to you, I would suggest you contact us and get our initial package. It's a no-obligation package. You're under absolutely no obligation by receiving the package, even though it does contain everything you need if you should decide to apply for a trust. You can review the package. It has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation in these currencies. You can contact us if you have any questions, either by phone or email. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm about to open the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. No service calls. Existing clients can contact us by phone or email if they have a question. This is for individuals that have questions about Trusts Unlimited. And number 2, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen in order to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give our newer callers our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically, pre-RV, but post-RV emails may go out as often as weekly. Well, let's go to our calls here. Our first caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Praveen from New York. Now, when is the new CBI governor going to take office?
Excuse me? Say that again?
When is the new CBI governor going to take office?
That's a very good question. That's a touchy subject. There have been parties that have been trying to remove a lock for some time. I will say this. I don't know that the appointment of the governor is going to be a problem with a revaluation in January 2020 because there's no way that if everything else is in place, that's going to be an impediment. If necessary, they will, I'm sure, put a proxy in there just to complete the reinstitution. So, I can't tell you when that's going to happen, but I really do not see that as being an impediment to a reinstitution in January.
Okay, but I had to he's going to take office on September the 1st. Is that the case, or you're not really?
Say that. I'm sorry, I can't say that.
I heard that the new governor CBI governor was going to take office on September the 1st. Is that the case, or you're not really sure?
Well, unfortunately, they make announcements like this all the time. The way I've learned to do it is I hear what they say, I wait to see what they do. It's entirely possible that will happen. But once again, everything that's been legislated through the Parliament, and remember, the CBI now is being overseen by this special committee that was established by the Parliament, which means that the CBI can function without the governor because they have this committee that's overseeing the CBI. So they may or may not appoint a person in September. If they do, it might be a proxy individual. If they don't, they still have that finance committee that's now charged with overseeing the CBI. So to me, I'd like it to get done sooner rather than later, but again, I don't think it's going to be an impediment to the process.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, our next caller is area code 916. That's 916. Go ahead. Hello, 916? One more time, 916. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Jim? Hi, it's Christopher from California. What I wanted to know is, when is the fiscal year begin and end for Iraq?
My understanding is September 1st is the fiscal year, and it's odd that most countries either go by calendar year or fiscal year starting in September. United States is the same way. I don't really understand why that's the case, but it is. And as I said with the previous caller, whether the fiscal year is September 1st or January 1st is irrelevant to the process.
I thought most of the revaluations took place at the beginning of a fiscal year, though.
Most of the revaluations took place. No, it's about 50-50, January or September. Those are the 2 months where it generally happens. The theory is that if your fiscal year is in September, that's when you would reval. But that's not the way it's functioning in Iraq. If that were the case, then they would need to underwrite and pass their budget in September, but they don't. They do it in January.
That's odd.
It is a little odd, but we're talking about Iraq.
Yeah. Thank you.
They're just outside of the box on a lot of the things that they do.
Yes, it's the heat.
It's the Eastern culture. And having come from the East myself, I can say this without being a pejorative. I mean, it's like I say, the deadlines in the West are deadlines. The deadlines in the East is time to renegotiate. It's just the way it works there, And I'm quite sure between now and the end of the year, the Kurds are going to raise their ugly head and have some other impediment that they're just going to have to deal with. It's just the way it is there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 312. 312, got to be Les.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon.
Yes,
Les in Chicago, or I should say Les in Ohio now. I'm traveling.
Okay.
All right.
What's going on?
So, I've got two questions.
Okay.
You mentioned coins. Now, are the coins public coins or the government coins between the countries? And
both.
Yeah.
Both. The coins will be available to the general public, and the coinage, because some of the coinage are higher denominations, will be used for exchanges rather than the provisional currency. That's done for two reasons. Because, once again, they want to get rid of all provisional currency, and they don't want it floating around there internationally, and they're going to stop the auctions because it's the abuse of the provisional currency that was creating the spread for the corrupt politicians. So that's why they're going to be using the coinage.
And they would need 3 months, or they're requesting 3 months?
They
with
want
the
3
coins
months
out before?
They're saying they want 3 months for the coins in circulation. That's, as a matter of fact, back in 2012 was the stipulation that they wouldn't reinstitute without the coinage being in circulation for 3 months. I'm not saying that they're following that. I'm just saying that if they do, if the coins are released in early to mid-September, 3 months puts us in early to mid-January.
Yes, it would. Yeah. So which government
It seems like everything's calibrated for January now.
Okay. So which government agency is requesting these 3 months?
This is the Parliament.
Parliament. Okay.
Parliament.
All right.
Remember, the CBI no longer operates as an independent agency under the auspices of the governor. It's now being micromanaged by the financial committee established by the Parliament. So when the Parliament, until there's someone appointed, whether it's a permanent or a proxy person, the Parliament has taken control. Now, are some of the people that just do not want to see Iraq resolve this thing going to go to the Supreme Court and try to create a problem? Probably. Maliki and that bunch, because, they just don't want to they're hardcore Shias, and they do not want to see uncoupling from Iran. There's a lot of things going on with them. But I just think there's more than enough time to resolve all that. And if it doesn't happen January 20th, to be honest with you, I'm at a loss for when it will happen.
I heard that. Okay, great, thanks. Last question. There's an article with banks and assets of these large banks here in the U.S. Now, which would be better for us, dinar holders or currency holders, to use or to choose a bank? Would it be a bank with large assets, small, medium? How would we choose our bank if we had to base it on the large bank's assets?
First of all, I don't think the small banks will be involved. Personally, I've always, all my life, used local banks or credit unions because you get much better service than the larger banks. All you get from the larger banks, as far as I'm concerned, is grief. I don't like dealing with them. The problem here is that the exchange of currencies, it's complicated to go from a fiat currency like ours to what will be essentially a Basel III compliant currency, so you need the software to do that. That's one of the reasons why Wells Fargo was tapped, because they supposedly had the software. Unfortunately, they don't seem to have the integrity to get things done properly. So I guess tier 2 and 3 banks could be involved, but I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't. But I certainly don't see small regional banks or credit unions or anyone like that being involved at all. When it comes to negotiating I've said this before, let's say the reinstitution happens. Because of my position where I work and because of my contacts, I will be calling several banks and say, okay, now the reinstitution of the dinar has occurred, so I want to know what kind of rates you're going to be able to provide to the trust holders, or what discounts for the fees for the exchange are going to be. I'll try to line that up. And I'm just going to go where I think I get the best deal. And I'm not going to be concerned with whether it's a local bank or a smaller regional bank or a credit union. I don't see any of them involved in this at all, again, because of what's going on and because the Treasury Department probably does not want a lot of players in this anyway.
Okay. All right. So their asset holding is not an important factor for us to consider?
Number one, they have to deal with international currencies, which eliminates most banks anyway. Number two, they have to have the software to do the transaction, because each of these currencies, vis-a-vis the U.S. dollar, it's a little different process. It's not a fiat currency for a fiat currency or a Basel III compliant for a Basel III. It's a little bit more complicated than that. We don't know whether the new Basel III compliant treasuries are going to be available, or whether that's the currency they're going to use. We don't have the answers to any of those questions, because either the government doesn't know the answer themselves yet, they haven't gotten their act in order until the reinstitution of the dinar happens, or they're simply not going to tell us. But they certainly wouldn't tell us, so we've tried to get the answers.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim. Say hi to the professor and have a great day.
You too, my friend. Take care.
Okie doke.
Bye-bye. Well, this was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. Those of you that have listened for the first time and may be interested in the things we've discussed, I certainly hope you will contact us to get our initial package. Once again, you're under no obligation by doing so. You can review the package, contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you in every way, and there will be no consultation fee. Our next call is scheduled for next week. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get an emergency email out and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So have a great week, everyone, and thanks again for listening to the call. Bye-bye.